Joining us now, Jennifer Freeman, attorney for Maria Farmer, who you just saw in that clip, and Gretchen Carlson, journalist and co-founder of Lift Our Voices.
Jennifer, I was on earlier today on Morning Joe, and I listened in real time as the tape played back of the president just refusing to say, oh, no, I would not pardon, grant clemency, do anything for Ghislaine Maxwell. And understanding what she was convicted of, knowing what so many just valiant women have come out and said about the role that she played, what she did. Why do you think that the president declined to be definitive today on what he would not do?
I can't speak for President Trump. I really can't, and I can't speculate how he thinks either. That would be very difficult. But what I can say is this is a tremendous, the notion of pardoning Maxwell is a betrayal to the victims. It's outrageous, it's utterly disheartening for them. These girls, these young girls and young women who went through this, and one of my clients, Annie Farmer, Maria Farmer's sister, testified at Maxwell's trial, one of the four people that testified. And the notion that her testimony will be thrown out the window is just disgraceful.
Gretchen, good to see you again.
And I want to say something.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
sorry.
Jennifer.
Yeah, I just also wanted to bring us back to what this really, where we really should be starting and looking at this whole issue, which is the utter failure by law enforcement, one of the largest failures in U.S. history, the FBI's failure to listen to Maria Farmer when she came forward in 1996 and did what every good American citizen is supposed to do: go to the FBI, go to law enforcement, tell them when you see a crime is being committed, and more crimes are coming. When she talked about crimes against children, and the FBI, what did they do? They did absolutely nothing, which is why we're looking towards a civil remedy, which is why Maria has to move forward with a lawsuit. But that's really where the focus should be, is the failure of the U.S. government.
Gretchen, meanwhile, you feel that there has been some movement in the last 10 years or so, probably stemming from the Me Too movement, into how we look at predators, how we look at abusers and assaulters. Tell me a little bit more about this. You wrote about this extensively today.
Yes, I wrote an op-ed, and I take this opportunity to say to these survivors, as I like to call them, not victims, but survivors, that we are lifting them up tonight. I don't want them to feel erased. Mm-hmm. I want them to understand that there's an army of people behind them. We would not have the Epstein story in the news like we do right now had it not been for the courage and the bravery of all of these survivors to come forward initially. And they are still remembered tonight. This is massive progress, and here's why. We are not demanding to hear from these survivors in order to believe that something bad actually happened to them. And before I came forward and before the Me Too movement, we would have been demanding that. Just as Jennifer just said, they would not have been believed. And so we are honoring them tonight as the reason that we are still talking about this story, and that why the majority of Americans want to find out who these perpetrators are and hold them accountable, instead of looking at the survivors and saying that they did something wrong.
Well, Jennifer, I take Gretchen's point. I think culturally there is some honoring of these survivors. I am concerned, though, that does not extend to the Department of Justice. When they made their original pronouncement that there was nothing to see here, they weren't going to release any files, it seems as though they did not follow the standards and protocol as laid out in the Victims' Rights Act. What would it have looked like for them to have done this in a way that actually honored survivors?
I appreciate the question. What they should have done is they should have actually looked at the evidence carefully, looked at all the evidence, and come forward with some kind of explanation of what happened and released the files. That would have been appropriate. But to simply close the door, shut the door, bolt it, and throw it in the ocean and say there's nothing to see here, that's really unacceptable.
We have a letter from Epstein survivor attorney to Blanche, James Comer, and Schumer that offered to help with the Maxwell interviews. And I want to just read from it. While the federal government undoubtedly has skilled and experienced investigators, there's no one that possesses as great or greater depth of knowledge regarding Epstein-related matters than the combined level of knowledge that the undersigned have accumulated. Recognizing the value that our knowledge can have in achieving the objective of full disclosure, which many, including the hundreds of Epstein victims we represent, are calling for, we are willing to volunteer our services to assist in the Maxwell interviews. Jennifer, I am still struggling to understand, and our NBC News colleagues are out to the Justice Department to ask them about the particular nature of the interviews, and I'm using quotes, that the Department of Justice conducted with Ghislaine Maxwell, because we don't know if they are recorded. We don't know if she was under oath. And now we also know that Congress is looking to speak with her. What do you think about all these additional conversations? And do you agree with the letter that it should be folks like yourself who are talking to Ghislaine Maxwell, or is it even necessary at this point?
I do believe the victims should continue to be given a voice. And that could include talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, talking with Ghislaine Maxwell, talking to the prosecutors who are looking at this. Because what didn't shock me today is the limited immunity grant. In order for the prosecutors, in order for Todd Blanche to sit down with Ghislaine Maxwell and for her to be willing to do it, she was made what's called queen for a day, which you give them limited immunity. It's limited, meaning you can't use what they say against her in the future. There are some exceptions to that and ways to get around it, impeachment, whatever. But that was pretty likely to be happening. So, you know, the damage was already done once he did that. But certainly the victims should play a role, a very important role. And they shouldn't be shunted aside, especially someone like Maria Farmer, who brought this to their attention in 1996. And if they'd only listened to her, more than 1,000 victims wouldn't have been abused. And nearly 25 years of abuse wouldn't have happened.
Well, Gretchen, to that point about timeline, this was from a recent government filing, which talks about the fact that from 1994, so that is 2 years before that 1996 accusation, to 2004, petitioner Maxwell coordinated, facilitated, and contributed to the multimillionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse of numerous young women and underage girls. The abuse followed a pattern. Petitioner and Epstein would identify vulnerable girls living under difficult circumstances, isolate them from their friends and families, gaining their trust by giving them gifts and pretending to be their friends, normalize the discussion of sexual topics and sexual touching with the girls, and then transition to sexual abuse, often through the pretext of a girl giving Epstein a massage. Is there a way to talk about this and hold people accountable without re-traumatizing these survivors?
Yeah, first of all, just let me say that Ghislaine Maxwell is not a victim. She is not to be believed, more than likely. She lied in the 2016 civil suit. She lied under oath in the 2021 criminal suit. Pardoning her would be a complete slap in the face to any survivor in this country and across the world. And there would be an insurrection, not just from the left, but also from the MAGA base that's trying to get answers from all of this. So to me, this is a sideshow. I wouldn't put much credence in this today. The only thing that the Trump team is looking for is the idea that she might let him off the hook, number one, or some high-ranking Democrat that they can come out and say, see, this is exactly what was really going on here. I just like to bring it back to the idea that we need to lift up the survivors. We would not be talking about this story if it was not for them. To Jennifer's point that law enforcement didn't believe them at the beginning or listening to it, I totally agree with that. But we have to see where we are today in 2025, and we wouldn't be here without the courage and bravery of the survivors speaking up.
Including you, Gretchen. Thank you.